So this is sort of part two of discussing effort. However, I'm going to attempt to organise it so it doesn't matter if you haven't watched part one. So I was looking at range in a conversation I'm having in my own head, obviously. I'm imagining you. About how we move under instruction in a direction, yeah. In the Feldenkrais, we'll sometimes say, move your shoulder in the direction of your ear, and there won't be any sense that you would need to reach your ear. Something that's not impossible, yeah, but that wouldn't be what your teacher would be implying. Implying simply that you have some clear sense of where you're going, but no pressure to get there. And that's what this idea that you can keep your movements within a range. And I've ended up saying most often within the range of 30 to 80% of what you can do. I've ended up giving people a very wide range to play with, in the hopes that somewhere within that option will be something that somebody really likes, so they'll commit to exploring it properly and getting the full benefit of this. Not pushing and pushing and pushing till you hit a boundary, not ending up in a place where you can't go any further, particularly not ending up in a place where you can't go any further because you're in pain. And there's a particular group of people, a much wider, I suspect, group of people, a much more common kind of person, for whom that restriction, the restriction of range in the joint, is not as tight. And in fact, one of the nice words for this kind of person is somebody who is lax, who has lax joints. And there are informal ways of discussing it that are often just using the term hypermobility, hypermobile joints. And then there's the more, someone who's had a full diagnosis, often with a battery of tests. The thing that causes the looseness in the joints affects a lot of our other structures and functions, produces organs that have less resilience than is standard as well. So all kinds of internal issues can come along with it. And yet there are many, many, many people for whom their loose free joints have turned into a career. Maybe as a yoga teacher, maybe as a dancer, maybe as a gymnast. There's all, as soon as you go into those areas, contortionist, you see a lot of people who are not only at ease with their own unusual range of motion, but actually exuberantly embracing it as part of their life. Now, even the people who embrace it exuberantly can sometimes have more problems with pain, be a bit more easily injured, be someone whose joints dislocate a little more easily. There's all kinds of elements of it that actually benefit hugely from learning to narrow this range that they have such freedom within, yeah? If you can make an unusually big movement in any direction, what that means is that you're just not getting the same signals most people get from their structural organisation, that they've gone far enough, yeah? Oh, no, that's far enough. And it's actually not possible, I think, as a Feldenkrais teacher, particularly one who has hypermobility issues of her own, to know for sure whether someone is hypermobile when they're misusing, in quotes, a joint, or whether they just are stretching. They've learnt to stretch, they've learnt to tolerate discomfort. Real classic version of this, I did dance classes, and I learnt this kind of organisation of the arms, and I didn't do ballet. I'm not a magnificent example of this, but you learn not to do that, and you learn not to do that. And in class, I often attempt to clarify the difference between these two as hugging an enormous uncle or being a child, being an aeroplane, jet aeroplane running along. But I can feel the discomfort. It's not hard to do, but I feel the discomfort in my joints, but I didn't for a long time. And having that instruction, that idea that you're staying within an easy range and a comfortable range that feels nice, this can be something that is much harder to get the hang of if your joints just, and it isn't usually all of them, by the way. So, sometimes somebody will say to me, oh no, I'm really stiff. And it's because they're very aware of the stiffness in one area and not so aware of the looseness in another. So in Feldenkrais, we talk about skeletal awareness. And, if you stop now and just focus on the bony parts, if you're sitting watching this, then maybe you can feel your sitting bones. Maybe there's some part of your foot that feels quite bony, like the heel that's on the ground. Our bones are, like internal scaffolding style structures. Not scaffolding, too bendy for that, but having a similar job, which is to support you in gravity with, they're just strong enough to do it. They're enormously strong. Bone is enormously strong throughout the animal kingdom. And how humans stand is that we kind of, these bones stack themselves. Now, I don't want to annoy, there's a whole area where that might be the wrong language to use. I'm not going to worry too much about that for now. Stacking just in this sense of one on top of the other, so that when you can stand very easily and freely within this range of motion that allows the weight of your head to be passing down through the spine, through the pelvis, into the legs and down into the heels in the most organized direction, then you have muscles that are backing up that self-supporting, head-supporting process. And those muscles are strong enough to do that. They do not need to be made stronger in order for you to stand well. And very often, when you can't stand easily and freely and lightly in a way that means that you can move in any direction without preparation, there's some clenching going on somewhere, and actually unclenching is the thing that will bring you back into ease rather than making something tougher and harder. And yet very often hypermobile people are advised that what they need is to make their muscles stronger, and I can see that works for people sometimes. It's never worked for me. I would just injure myself if I did that. What has worked for me is learning to feel the bony supports, even though my joints have a little more play in several areas than they're meant to have. And this version of play, it's like when you screwing an IKEA desk together. You don't try and screw each screw in tightly before you begin on the next one. You go round and tighten, then you go round and tighten again. You leave a bit of play so that the whole structure can come together in one organised form. And one way that you could talk about hypermobile joints is joints with a little more wiggle room than is normal. So Feldenkrais happens to be a really useful process for anyone having to deal with those kinds of physical issues. And I think what will happen in time is that there will be a much more recognition of the positive elements of having that kind of structure, rather than at the moment there's a little bit of a focus on what's problematic about it. Hypermobile people, it doesn't shorten your life, and I suspect that's got a lot to do with learning to take care of yourself, learning to be a little more sensitive to your own nature a little sooner than some people have to. So yes, I am. So that's another aspect of range, and in that state, it's just about starting to feel the bones connecting to the other bones all the way through. Doesn't mean we're ignoring muscle. Doesn't mean we're ignoring fascia. doesn't mean we're ignoring all the interconnecting that's going on through the whole tissue. But bones are easy to feel in motion. It's easy to feel those connections, and it gives you a very nice tool for beginning to feel your own organisation more clearly. So I'm going to pause that one there.